Hello there. In this video, I'm going to talk about the QUEEN Streetcar. This is arguably one of the most important routes in the entire city outside of the subway network. It is the longest streetcar line in the city and it is one of the most heavily used. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. The origins of the QUEEN Streetcar trace back to 1875 as a suburban line. On June 9, 1875, horse-drawn cars began running along the Kingston Road tramway from the Don River gravel pits to what is today the intersection of Kingston Road and Main Street. It must be noted that the stretch of Queen Street between Kingston Road and the Don River was once just part of Kingston Road. This service wasn't just a passenger service, however. In fact, the passenger side of things was simply an add-on. The main function of this tramway was to haul supplies for the Toronto Gravel Road and Concrete Company. In 1878, the tramway would be extended to Victoria Park Avenue. Service on the Kingston Road tramway would end after the City of Toronto annexed Riverdale in 1884 and the Beaches in 1887. The Toronto Street Railway would then push its own streetcar service east of the Don River to Lee Avenue. When the Toronto Railway Company would take over streetcar service in Toronto in 1891, they would reroute this streetcar line onto King Street, with cars now operating between Lee Avenue and Dufferin Street via Queen Street and King Street. This route would be known as the King Streetcar. The line would be electrified in 1893 and then extended east to Balsam Avenue in 1894. At this time, the area we know today as the Beaches neighborhood, or more specifically the eastern end of it, was considered cottage country, with most people only venturing this far east in the summer. Winter service out here was sparse as the TRC felt there weren't enough year-round riders for full service east of Lee Avenue. This would change in 1895 when service to Balsam Avenue was provided by every second streetcar. The TRC would look to further extend its service to Monroe Park, which the TRC had leased, then a further expansion beyond the Neville Park Ravine to Victoria Park Avenue. The TRC would also purchase a controlling stake in the Toronto and Scarborough Electric Railway Light and Power Company in 1885. The T&SER, among other things, operated a branch line down Blantyre Avenue between Kingston Road and Victoria Park Avenue. With the TRC and its controlling stake in the T&SER, it seemed like a natural fit to have the two services connect at Victoria Park Avenue. However, the village of East Toronto had some grievances with the TRC and would make them known to the company. On July 20, 1897, when the TRC had begun to move supplies onto Queen Street for an extension of the line, residents from the village would form a posse and dump the TRC supplies into a nearby ravine. Things would calm down soon after, and a year later in 1898, streetcar service on Queen Street would begin operating to a loop at Monroe Park. The T&SER branch along Blantyre Avenue would also be torn up in 1897. The TRC, however, was not happy with Monroe Park and would enter into an agreement with the Dominion Parks Company to acquire land between McLean and Ludi Avenues to set up Scarborough Beach Park. This park would be served exclusively by the TRC streetcar and was successful enough that the TRC would hold on to it after the TTC was formed in 1921. Monroe Park would be closed and developed over in 1902, while the same would occur to Scarborough Beach Park in 1925. Into the 1910s, service along Queen Street would be split into two. Downtown-bound streetcars would operate as far as Woodbine Avenue, while a shuttle service would operate between Woodbine and Monroe Park. This segment of the line was single-track at the time. This would change, though, when the City of Toronto stepped in to assist in the double tracking of the line to a Y at Neville Park. Through service to Neville Park would begin on December 24, 1914, with every second car turning back at Scarborough Beach Park. After the Toronto Transportation Commission took over streetcar operations in 1921, they would set out to improve service on the former TRC lines. By 1923, all streetcars along Queen would terminate at the newly built Neville Park Loop, and service along Queen Street would now be referred to as the Beach Streetcar. This line would operate from Neville Park Loop to Humber Loop. In 1928, service on the Beach Streetcar would change, with it now having its western terminus at McCall Street. This was in conjunction with the creation of the new Lakeshore Streetcar, which came about after the TTC took control of the Toronto and Mimico Electric Railway. Lakeshore streetcars would operate along Queen Street to a loop on Mutual Street, thus overlapping the Beach Streetcar in the downtown core. Service along Queen Street would operate like this until the 1930s, when the Lakeshore Streetcar was cut back in the west to Parkside Loop to make way for the new Long Branch Streetcar. On November 1st, 1936, Sunday and holiday service along the Lakeshore Streetcar would instead be provided by the Beach Streetcar, which would now operate to Parkside Loop instead. On August 2nd, 1937, the Lakeshore Streetcar would be completely merged with the Beach Streetcar, and from here on, this new line operating from Neville Park to Parkside Loop would be known as the QUEEN Streetcar. The Queen name had actually already been in use, so that line would be renamed to the Kingston Road Streetcar. The Beach name, however, would still live on as a tripper service, operating from Neville Park into downtown Toronto via King Street, looping through Church Street, Wellington Street, and York Street. This service would survive until 1948, when it was folded into the Kingston Road Tripper. In 1957, likely as part of the construction of the Gardiner Expressway, the Queensway would be extended to meet Queen and King Streets at Ronsonsvale Avenue. The Queensway would be built with a private right-of-way for streetcars. The Queen Streetcar would then be extended along the Queensway to Humber Loop. On February 26, 1966, with the opening of the Bloor Danforth subway and the end of the Coxwell Streetcar, the TTC would experiment with running every second Queen Streetcar up Kingston Road to Bingham Loop, to replace the now lost service that was provided by the Kingston Road Coxwell Streetcar. This, however, would not work, and on May 22, 1966, the Queen Streetcar would return to its normal route. In 1967, service on the Queen Streetcar would be provided by two-car PCC streetcars. This change would require both Neville Park and Humber Loop to be redesigned to allow for a wider turning radius. Humber Loop would also be built with a passing loop to allow for decoupling of the multiple units. Two-car PCCs would operate along Queen Street until 1977, when the TTC was forced to go back to single-unit PCCs due to increased congestion and lower ridership on the line. With the rollout of the CLRV streetcars, the Queen Streetcar would be given the number 501. Given the route's length, service issues had become a common thing with the Queen Streetcar. In the late 1970s, residents of the Beaches neighborhood had complained about the excessive number of cars being short-turned, with one resident telling the Toronto Star, "They can get a man to the moon, so why can't they get a streetcar to Lee Avenue?" The TTC would look at various methods to ease the problems on the Queen Streetcar, including slowing down the cars and giving more time for them to complete the route. On July 1st, 1990, proof of payment would be introduced along the line as a means to speed up boarding, as now riders with a pass or a transfer could board at the back doors. The TTC had intended to abolish this practice, citing losses from fare evasion, but pressure from advocates and locals convinced the TTC to keep the policy in place. Service on the Queen Streetcar would continue to deteriorate even with the introduction of the larger ALRV streetcars, although the TTC didn't help the cause by operating the ALRVs at a longer headway. Some residents would complain about having to wait half an hour to 40 minutes for a streetcar. As ridership continued to drop in the mid-90s, the inconsistency of service on the line became more aggravating to local residents. To make matters worse though, on March 26, 1995, the TTC would opt to merge the 501 Queen with the 507 Long Branch, thus creating a single 25-kilometer line from Neville Park to Long Branch. This same line would also operate in mixed traffic through downtown Toronto. All of the issues that plagued the eastern end of the line would now begin cropping up on the western end as well. In 2007, the TTC would hold meetings to discuss the service quality or lack thereof on the QUEEN Streetcar. From this, the TTC would hire more route supervisors to ensure streetcars left the terminals on time. As well, the TTC would institute new policies on the line, including holding streetcars instead of short-turning them to maintain consistent headways, and performing operator changes at Russell Car House to ensure operators could be changed quickly. While riders would note improvements in the service on the line, gaps were still common. The TTC would begin deploying additional streetcars and buses in the Beaches neighborhood to maintain some level of service. At those same 2007 meetings, some would argue for breaking up the QUEEN Streetcar into smaller overlapping routes to minimize the severity of disruptions. Some would also call for the resurrection of the 507 Long Branch, with the line running to Dundas West Station. In 2009, the TTC would split the QUEEN Streetcar as part of a 6-week trial. The western branch of the line would operate from Long Branch Loop to a loop via Parliament, Dundas, and Broadview. The eastern branch would operate from Neville Park Loop to a loop via Shaw, King, and Dufferin. In January 2010, the TTC would put out a report stating that the trial was unsuccessful at preventing short turns and was unpopular with riders. There were those, however, who felt the TTC never gave the plan a real chance and that the trial was designed to fail. In 2016, the QUEEN Streetcar would be split once again, with the western branch of the line operating from Long Branch Loop to Humber Loop, effectively bringing back the 507 Long Branch in every way but name. The eastern branch of the line would run from Neville Park Loop to Humber Loop. This was done due to the TTC essentially running out of streetcars due to delays in the delivery of the new Flexity streetcars from Bombardier and the ALRVs deteriorating at a faster rate than expected. The TTC found that they could not maintain service on the entire line with the increasingly small number of ALRVs, so they would deploy CLRVs onto the western branch of the line instead. This would have the side effect of increased service along the western end of the line, which local residents had wanted since the abolition of the 507 Long Branch in 1995. Today, the 501 QUEEN remains in its split state and there are currently no plans to extend the line anywhere. That said, the TTC is planning on making the split service a bit more official, with a split similar to what has been done on the 504 King Streetcar. The proposed change to the line would see the 501 split into 2 branches overlapping through the downtown core. The 501A would operate from Neville Park Loop to Sunnyside Loop, while the 501B would operate from Long Branch Loop to a new Riverside Loop to be built at the intersection of Queen Street and Broadview Avenue. With the construction of the Ontario line, the QUEEN Streetcar will also find itself temporarily diverted onto Richmond and Adelaide Streets for the duration of construction. Beyond these plans, the 501 QUEEN's position in Toronto isn't going to change for a long time, if ever, even with the opening of the Ontario line, as any effect it has on the QUEEN Streetcar will be strictly within the downtown core, and the suburban segments of the line will be relatively unaffected, if affected at all. While the line may still be in operation, there is at least one ghost of its past still lingering in the city. That ghost being a small stretch of track along Neville Park Boulevard, the former Y used by the line before the construction of Neville Park Loop. The Y was disconnected from the network in 1989, although you can still not only see a section of track, but you can even see the rest of it that was paved over but is now slowly coming back to the surface. At 25 kilometers in length, the QUEEN Streetcar is by far the longest streetcar line in the city and can be viewed as the linchpin of the entire streetcar network. This can be proven by the fact that all 3 of the system's car houses can be accessed from Queen Street, and in the case of Russell Car House and the Leslie Barnes, only Queen Street. Queen's importance to the network is so great that we have had many discussions and plans about either putting it underground as a streetcar subway or building a heavy rail subway beneath it. Those aren't discussed in this video, but you can find out more in my videos about the Bloor-Danforth line and the Downtown Relief line. And with that, I will end this video here. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it and want to see more like it, please hit that subscribe button because there are more videos like it on the channel and there are more videos like it on the way. If there's anything you want to say about the QUEEN Streetcar, don't be afraid to do so in the comment section down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.